Yo, what up? I was working out this morning and I was thinking about this concept and this idea of worship. About a month and a half ago, for our Bible study, we focused on worship as a lifestyle for the entire month. Our understanding of worship is so narrow, so myopic. That's probably a broader conversation, but we looked at worship from the Hebrew hesed. We looked at worship from the Greek proskuneo, and we looked at worship from the English, the worth of something. And I started thinking about worship in the form of music as I was working out this morning. And I jotted down some notes in my phone, and I want to read them to you now. I don't want to try to remember this. Worship in many ways is a reflection of white supremacy and the hierarchy associated with it. It is, in my estimation, it is often a deepening of whiteness. Just to be transparent, I have worked in a parachurch space or a variety of parachurch spaces over the years, and I have experienced the unspoken value placed on styles of worship in white spaces. You think about athletics. If it's a black quarterback, we automatically defer to his athleticism, not necessarily his cerebral ability to understand the game. If it's a white quarterback, we default to his cerebral understanding of the game, and maybe he has athletics or athleticism. We have been made, in my estimation, made to believe that our form of expression or expressions were bad, they were evil, they were unsophisticated, they were unintelligible. Our sound was said that it was demonic, it was of the world when we hit the drums too hard, when we played the kind of licks that we played on the guitar. Our styles of singing were often associated with secularism. Willie Jennings, former professor at Duke and now I believe at Yale, in his book, The Christian Imagination, talks about the disembodiment of Christianity and how that undergirds and support white supremacy. See, when you disembody the concept and the idea of Christianity from a physical space and a particular group of people, you now have the ability to reinterpret it in a way that benefits you. And so now when you disembody it and you place it in Western culture, particularly in the United States, you can frame it the way that you so desire, absent of a brown group of people who typically expressed worship communally in an Eastern frame of reference or thought process. You can now do that and impose who you believe or who you deem him to be in a way that supports your capitalistic endeavors. Here's what I want to do with worship. I want us, or what would happen if we unchained worship? If we removed worship from its supremacist, hierarchical, westernized, indoctrinating, imposing, ideological, theological framework. What if we unchained it and groups of people could worship in ways that was uniquely attached to their experience? Because often in these, I wish I had time to unpack the theological framework and the style and sound that is associated with CCM. It's not as free as we try to make it to be. You can study it. It sounds the same. I heard a statistic by Brandy Miller in her podcast, Reclaiming Theology. She said that 70% of the 200 top songs were written by or produced by 12 people. And they accumulate for 70% of the wealth that is coming from this music. That is indoctrination. That is a capitalistic model that is spreading across the globe. And now we have predominantly black churches, predominantly Latino churches, churches of color, people assuming that this particular sound is somehow better. No, it's different, not better. And the problem is, when you think from a supremacist mindset, anything that's different from your expression, you view as deficient. And the problem is, those of us who have been the recipients, the unfortunate recipients of oppression and suppression, we have now embraced, as my mother would say, his ice is colder. Last I checked, ice is just ice. But when you attach a value to something, the person who you hold in higher esteem than yourself, whatever they have, even if it's as equivalent to yours, you hold theirs in higher esteem. Theirs is somehow more valuable. And so now we think his ice is colder. What if we removed this thinking and this perspective from the idea and the concept and the practice of worship in the form of music? Can I just be honest with you? You can disagree with this if you want, but I think I have proof. Worship has a color. You don't want to acknowledge that, but worship has a color. That's why churches are moving away from sounds that have been historically and uniquely attached to them, because somehow they view this other sound as more righteous, as more holy, as more theologically sound. I challenge you to go back and reread the words that you're singing. I challenge you to go back and revisit the lyrics that you are intimating, and you'll find that there is a theological framework behind those lyrics. And can I suggest to you, because I am a free thinker and a theologian, I don't necessarily buy into the theological construct that's behind those lyrics because it has a acoustic guitar associated with it. When we practice this ethereal, abstract, out in the galaxy kind of a God, a billion years, a billion miles, or whatever the name of the song is, and we miss the fact that God resides in us. We forget the fact that God was on and is on the side of the oppressed, that this faith that we now have co-opted was birthed out of a marginalized people. When we detach that from the music that we sing, if that music isn't pushing us towards a more just and equitable space, not just some self-serving, soothing feeling that allows us to deal with our shortcomings and our frailties and our faults, to deal with our sins. Worship has a color. And I want to suggest to us that we need to revisit how we arrived at the value that we have placed on the style and the kind of worship that we are now embracing. The question I'll leave you with is, if worship has a color, the question is, what is it for you? Peace and blessings.